climate of music in Vegas is very centered around the Strip and like huge acts, which is amazing and like a testament to how fucking awesome Vegas is. But as far as like the indie scope of like singer-songwriters in like downtown or the arts district, that is a challenge in itself because I don't necessarily feel that there are enough connections here as much as there would be comparatively speaking to LA or Nashville or whatnot. Like so many people that I went to high school with who wanted to pursue and become like a pop star and whatnot, immediately it was like, I'm moving to LA, I'm moving to Nashville and all of that. So Vegas is kind of just, I feel like a hidden gem. I still feel.
And on the rise too.
On the rise.
As someone who also, I mean, I have lived in New York, I've lived in LA. I think for me, I've never seen like the cusp of something before in one of these cities. Like I think LA, it's so established. New York is so established. There's a whole other world here in Vegas. And I want to ask, how do you, because we're going to talk a little bit about the shows and things that you play here, but how are you also sort of like finding other friends and meeting like-minded people in different areas of the Strip? Like, how do you go about doing that?
It's literally going out. And like going to events, going to the Shag Room, going to open mics. Open mic, like those two words together, I guess kind of has a denotation these days. Actually, I'll go back to a story about open mic at the Shag Room.
Yeah.
At the Virgin Hotel. I was with my brother and we were having lunch somewhere and he pulled out the Las Vegas Weekly and there was an ad that was like, the Shag Room at the Virgin Hotel, open mic, you can win la da 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 da. And my brother was like, you should join this. And I was like, okay, cool, maybe. And then I set time aside and I actually went to one. And that was kind of like the beginning of like, holy shit, there's some seriously incredible musicians at this cute little lounge in this casino that's like on the south side of the Strip or on Paradise or whatnot. And that to me was like, yeah, step foot out there, meet new people. Basically, I know it sounds so simple and it's easier said than done. But go out there, show up. And like, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to become like lifelong friends with. You never know who you're going to want to support in the long run and like discover that you actually have more in common with than you figured. Like how you were like, yeah, you were at Khruangbin.
Yeah, I think that's I know. We were talking about how Khruangbin was in town at Brooklyn Bowl. And I was like, you know, I do go to shows by myself from time to time, but I just was like, I wish I had like a show buddy.
Yeah.
And the second Jane got, she's like, you hit me up. Like this is how it all happens here.
Yes.
I want to do a follow-up. I love your answer to that question for our introverts. But what about when you're there and you're shy, or you're there and you perform and you just don't, you're maybe by yourself and you're just like, now what? What's the next step if I'm not immediately talking to people, but I want to make it known that this is a culture I want to be a part of, or I want to be in this scene? What might you say?
I consider myself like an extroverted introvert as well.
There is some clinical word for it.
There have been times where I did show up and I did share my work. And I didn't want to communicate with anybody because I was so intimidated. And I was like, well, shit, what's going to happen now? Man, you made me want to like journal about that.
Journal to an audience of possibly thousands.
All I would want to say for that is consistency. Even if you feel uncomfortable like communicating with anybody, the fact that you showed up and like sang your songs and didn't speak to anybody, know that you're still going to make space to keep doing that. And then by doing that, maybe people will approach you. Maybe you don't have to necessarily reach out as hard because you're already out there and you're in that space.
And I'll also say, like, on top of that, going up to someone who performed that you thought was awesome is another big one.
Yeah.
I have made friends that way many times. You just made their whole night possible.
Yeah.
So that's another one I would say on top of that.
And it's so validating. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't know which artist, like, where they're at in their journey.
Yep.
But, like, the slightest hint of support or, like, recognition goes the longest way, is what I've learned.